minutes.
Okay. This webinar will be highlighting resources from the Nova Education Collection on pbslearningmedia.org, which is a free pre-K through 12 platform featuring digital learning content. And it will be featuring a special presentation on the adolescent brain from the host of Nova's Your Brain. Thank you again for joining us. This webinar is hosted by GBH Education, which is a division of GBH. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, GBH is the flagship PBS station based from Boston, and we are the producers of what are probably some of your favorite PBS shows, including Masterpiece, Frontline, American Experience, and Nova, which is why you're here tonight. Let's move to the next slide, please. So again, this is Back to School STEM with Nova, and this webinar is for grades, educators of grades 6 through 12. Next slide, please. And again, this is hosted by GBH Education and Nova Education. And besides being the producer of major shows for the PBS network, GBH is also a founding partner with PBS in the PBS LearningMedia platform, which is a pre-K through 12 digital learning platform. And you'll see some of the stats there. It covers pre-K through 12, all the disciplines, and the content is free. Next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce our presenters. First is Ralph Bouquet. He is Director of Education and Outreach at Nova, focusing on Nova Education. Sean Stevens, who is the Director of STEM Curriculum and Instruction at GBH Education. And Heather Berlin, joining us a little bit later in the hour, who is a neuroscientist and was the host of the Nova show's Your Brain, and will be talking to us about the adolescent brain. So I would like now to turn it over to Ralph.
All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us as we explore some really exciting resources on PBS Learning Media. My name is Ralph Bouquet. I'm the Director of Education and Outreach for Nova. I'm a former high school science teacher. I taught high school biology and chemistry for several years in Philadelphia. And in my role as a Director of Education and Outreach, I oversee a lot of the educational programming that Nova does, as well as our outreach initiatives and campaigns. And so in addition to obviously the broadcast series, we spend a lot of time really thinking about how we can extend the reach and impact of the Nova series into classrooms all around the country. And so today I'm going to share some really exciting highlights from this year. As many of you know, this is the 50th anniversary of the Nova Science brand, which is a really, really exciting moment for us. Not many brands sort of last for 50 years long. And so it really is an exciting opportunity to be able to share sort of the wealth of incredible content that the Nova series has produced over the years. And so we'll be sharing some of the highlights from the 50th anniversary year, but also some other highlights from previous years as well that we think are going to be very, very useful for all of you and for your students as well. And so if you are watching on Zoom or on YouTube or on Facebook. If you look to the comments or in the chat section, you should see some links that members of our team will be sharing in the chat. And so you can check out links to some of the resources that I'm mentioning. In addition, if you registered for this on Zoom, you will receive a follow-up email that will have links to many of those resources as well. So please make sure to tune in and pay attention to the chat for some great links to some incredible content that I think will be useful for you and your students. All right, so moving on. So the Nova Education brand really exists to empower educators, youth, and lifelong learners by fostering curiosity in the sciences, by promoting inclusive science communication, and by amplifying the voices of the next generation of leaders in STEM. And so this is what we really exist to do. And part of what our goal really is to find ways to take the content that is produced from Nova's broadcasts, productions, as well as our digital productions, and make them available for use in the classroom. And one of the primary ways by which we do that is by taking that content and producing resources on the PBS Learning Media platform. And so the Nova collection on PBS Learning Media is one of the largest, if not the largest, I think, collection on the PBS Learning Media platform. And that includes resources that are aligned to the next generation science standards. You can also search by resources from your local state standards as well. But this is really just a really great place to find resources that are going to be useful for you and your students. And so if you look into the chat, you should see a link to the PBS LM collection. I'm going to actually share some really exciting news about that collection. It's going to be going through some major updates over the course of the next few months. And so we'll talk about that later on. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the highlights from this year, the 50th anniversary year. And I'll start by talking about the great American Eclipse. And so for those of you who were tuning in earlier, I think we had a webinar earlier in the spring where we talked about the lead up to the April 8th eclipse. And we really want to just, again, thank you all for your engagement in that campaign. In that webinar, we shared some really great resources about engaging our students in the eclipse, about engaging families in the eclipse. And we also shared a sign-up resource to get Nova Eclipse glasses. And so thanks to that campaign, thanks to your enthusiasm and engagement, we were able to distribute over 24,000 Eclipse glasses to over 200 schools, libraries, and community organizations across the country. And so we again appreciate you all for your engagement in that campaign. It was a really, really exciting moment. Eclipse do not happen that often. And so it really is awesome to be able to share that moment with you all. So really, really happy for everybody who participated in that campaign. In addition, we also launched a live stream event the morning of the eclipse on YouTube. This was our most successful live streamed event in collaboration with NASA. We were in Texas and also in Arkansas, where we broadcast from one of the sites where NASA was actually tracking and doing research on the eclipse. And so we got to hear from NASA scientists. We got to hear from some students who were able to tune in and appear in the live stream. So if you haven't checked that out, it is available on the Nova YouTube channel. You can watch that live stream, but it's a really, really great opportunity. And so we really, again, thank you all for your engagement in all these eclipse activities. It really is just a testament to your enthusiasm, your engagement for us to be able to continue to make these events. So one thing I'm really excited to share is this fall, we will be releasing and re-releasing the Nova collection on PBS Learning Media as a premium collection. And so what that means, I know usually when you hear premium, you think, okay, I'm going to have to pay for this. You are not going to have to pay for anything. It's still going to be free as usual. But the premium collection is a really exciting opportunity for us because it allows us to bring a lot more visibility and to create a better user experience for the Nova resources on PBS Learning Media. And so in the premium collection, you will be able to search within the collection for resources, just for Nova resources. Everything will also be organized in a way that's going to be easier for you to browse through collections, through the disciplinary content levels. You're going to be able to search by Nova series or by film. You'll also be able to search through the labs. And so this is really going to be a really, really new way for us to offer a user experience that's much more simple, it's much more easy to use, it's much more fun, and much more engaging to look at as well. And so we're really excited about this. It's still a work in progress right now, but we're hoping, hopefully by October, to be able to launch this for you all. And so if you are already on the GBH Education newsletter or on the Nova Education newsletter, make sure you are on those newsletters. We will be sharing more information about those about that resource when it becomes live later this fall. So please stay tuned to that. And one of the other things we're excited about is that the collection will also give us increased visibility for many of your favorite Nova broadcast films and series as well. And so please keep that in mind, that if you are looking for special Nova shows that you really like, you'll be able to see them much more easily. You'll be able to access those resources much easier in the premium collection. And so big thank you again to all the members of the GBH education staff that's helping us put this together. It really is an awesome experience, and we're really excited to share this with you all. So please stay tuned for that. In addition, I wanted to share a couple additional highlights from the 50th anniversary as well, including some exciting collections that we have coming your way. The first one I'll talk about is Secrets in Your Data. And so this collection is now available in the PBS LearningMedia collection for Nova. And then I'll also talk about the Building Stuff series. And this is a really new and exciting series all about engineering that we are going to be previewing, that we'll be premiering in November as well. So please stay tuned for that. So first, I will talk about the Secrets in Your Data collection. So for those of you who didn't tune into this film earlier in the year, The Secrets in Your Data was a film that Nova premiered in May earlier this year, all about data privacy and data security. And so for those of you who are working with students, you all know how important it is, how important digital media literacy is, how important digital citizenship is. Regardless of what you teach, it is, we exist in a digital world now, and our students do as well. And so it's important that they are equipped with the tools and with the knowledge to make more informed decisions about how they are sharing their information online and how they navigate that space as well. And so October happens to be National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So if you are a teacher who does anything in technology, or if you just want to make sure that your students are up to speed on these best practices, this is the collection for you. This is a collection that really can teach students how data is collected during online activity and how they can protect their privacy as well. And so if you are teaching, if you want to talk about digital citizenship, if you want to talk about building stronger passwords using two-factor authentication, this is a really great resource for students. And also I'll add, this is a good resource for teachers as well. These are things that we all have to deal with. These are things that we all have to manage. I don't know how many of us, when we see that cookies pop up every time we go to a new website and we just click accept without really thinking about what we are accepting or what we're allowing that website to do. This is a really good resource to provide you with a primer as well on how to make better and more informed decisions when you are online. So please check out this resource. The link for this collection is in the chat as well, but this is a really great resource to help students and help educators as well think a bit more diligently about how they are navigating the online space. It's full of surprises as well. I think many of us were really surprised when you watch this show at the degree to which our data is being sold. And what the impact is to our privacy when that happens. And so highly recommend this collection. Again, for digital citizenship, for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is in October. This is a really good, very engaging series as well that can help you make, and your students make more informed decisions about how you are navigating online. All right. And any questions thus far about about this collection or anything I've spoken or mentioned thus far? Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to address them. All right. And now I'm going to talk about the Building Stuff series. And so we are very excited about this series. This is a new series premiering November 13th through the 27th. It is a three-part series about engineering. And so in this series, it follows some of the most creative engineering experts as they build stuff that helps extend our range, amplify our abilities, and alter our environment for the better. And so it's 3 episodes, as I mentioned. The first episode, Boosted, is all around amplifying our abilities. So thinking about what are ways in which we can use technology, what are ways in which we can take inspiration from nature to really amplify our capabilities to do things, everything from, improving vision, haptic feedback. These are just some really interesting ideas that episode covers. And Reach It, we're talking about how do we extend our range into different environments. So we're talking about building buildings that are even taller and more safe, how to create environments that humans can sustainably live in space, and also how we can do the same thing deep undersea as well, in the oceans as well. And so you'll see everything from submarines to textile-based sort of space environments. It's a really, really incredible show. And then in Change It, we're talking about how do we alter our environment? What are the ways in which we can change our environments using science to address climate change issues, to really sort of, again, think about extending our ability to live in different environments and to change our environments in ways that really help to address climate change issues and pollution as well. And so really, really inspiring series. Features a lot of great engineering concepts. If you are teaching physics, if you're teaching engineering, this is the series for you. It really covers a lot of great resources all about engineering and even the design process, the scientific method as well. All that is really covered and really and highlighted in this series. And now I'm going to play a trailer for you all, and I want to make sure that I allowed the sound, so I might have to drop out here. Let me just hop back in real quick. Apologies for that. I'm just going to share my screen again to make sure that we captured that. And give you 1 second here. All right. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen again so we can make sure that we get the sound there. All right. All right, good. Everybody can see that. All right, great. But one thing that's really exciting about this is that this is also the Building Stuff project is part of a multi-platform project. And what I mean by that is that not only are we doing content with this broadcast series, but we're also producing content on other platforms as well. And one of those platforms is Twitch. If you many of you are probably familiar with Twitch, you probably heard your students talk about it a lot. Twitch is a very popular live streaming platform that a lot of young people are really involved with. It's primarily a platform where people stream video games and or themselves doing sort of activities and things like that. And so Nova has launched a Twitch channel for the Building Stuff series. And in this channel, we're really highlighting some really exciting engineering experiences, games, and a whole lot of stuff as well. So I'm just going to play the trailer for you all, which really highlights what this series is all about. And again, the URL at the bottom, twitch.tv/Nova Building Stuff, is where you can find this. This is a series that is streaming Monday through Friday, every day at 1 p.m. The episodes are archived. And so let's hop in and see and learn more about what the series is about.
So I'm gonna try to make this. Do you like building stuff? This thing is incredibly small. What about playing games? Boom, here I go.
Yep.
Hey, my friend.
Awesome.
I'm Dr. Nehemiah Mabry, AKA Dr. Nee. What does this one do? And those things are exactly what Nova's new Twitch channel, Building Stuff with Nova, is all about.
Get the hammer. We're engineers.
Every weekday, we're live streaming from Twitch.
Why does this type of research matter?
Because we can save lives.
Playing games and meeting cool engineers.
I just got obsessed with relativity and Einstein. And
hopefully we got some young engineers and existing engineers out there listening right now.
We are building our own engineering escape room. Come help us design a real-life escape room.
To build an actual escape room where you have to fix the circuits in the walls so the doors will open again.
You are smart enough to do this, and we're going to give you the tools to do it.
And then, in October, be a part of the same escape event you helped create.
The first 4-day escape room. This might be a first.
Sound like fun? Join me to build stuff with Nova. I think it's my 5th one. Will I succeed? Every weekday on Twitch. On your mark, get set, go. Come on, come on, come on. Hey, hey. Everybody give it up in the chat. All right, here we go. We got some love coming through.
All right. All right, y'all. So that is a series that we are very, very excited about. And I think, many of you who will be able to tune in, you'll see that it's a really, really wide range of content that is covered in that series. So everything from engineering projects and activities that Dr. Nehemiah will actually sort of showcase, and he will sort of do walkthroughs and rather sort of build-throughs where he's actually building something. We'll play video games that sort of highlight engineering and physics principles. He interviews tons of scientists and engineers from different fields who are talking about their research. And so, again, really, really great experience for those of you who want to find an opportunity to use a platform like Twitch in ways that are going to really engage your students, highly recommend that y'all check this out. It has really been an exciting experience to sort of see the ways in which we are creating a new community there. It's not a place that Nova has frequented often, and so we're really, really excited at the opportunity of being able to work on this platform. And so let me hop back in to the presentation. But I want to talk a little bit about in addition to that Twitch channel, in addition to those resources, there's a lot of other exciting things happening as well for the Building Stuff project, including some engineering activity toolkits that we will be putting together for this project. And so as part of this project, we are going to be designing activities inspired by the Building Stuff series with materials for a group of 30 students. And so these are going to be free kits that we will make available for teachers. And so when those kits are available, we will send out registration forms on the GBH Education as well as the Nova Education listserv. There is a very limited supply of these. And again, we are prioritizing teachers who teach physics and engineering to receive these kits. But these will have actual activities that you can do with a group of 30 students in working in small groups that are designed and based off of the content of the series as well. So we really encourage you to check this out. Again, if you are not signed up on those listservs, please make sure to sign up. There will be a survey that we will send after this as well, where we will track your email and information, so we can put you on a list to receive notification of these kits when they're available. But again, really, really exciting opportunity to, again, engage your students in activities that are inspired by the themes and the concepts that are highlighted in the Building Stuff series. In addition to that, we will also be producing a PBS LM collection of resources from the series. And so this will be premiering hopefully in November. We are also going to host 2 virtual field trips. And for those of you who haven't or aren't tuned in to the Nova Education virtual field trips, these are live stream conversations that we host with scientists. We host about between 6 to 8 of these events a year, but there are live stream conversations where we bring a scientist in on Zoom to usually do some sort of tour or an activity or some sort of interactive where they talk about their research, and then we invite students to ask questions as well on that live stream. And so these are usually live streamed in the middle of the day, so you can do them and join them during the school day with your students. And we're really excited because we hope to really be able to take your students to some really exciting locations and to sort of go behind the scenes at some of the exciting projects that are included in this series. And so stay tuned for more information about those virtual field trips that will be premiering beginning in November, and most likely November and December this fall. And then finally, we have 2 screening events. So if you are located in Boston or in LA, we have 2 screening events planned for the fall. Again, we will send more information about those dates for those screening events via email on our listservs. We're hoping to do one in Boston and one in LA. I think our date we've secured for the Boston event is November 13th. But we will send some more updates about those events when they become available. So please make sure to stay tuned to these updates for this project. So very, very excited about that. All right. And now I will transition over to my colleague, Sean, who's going to talk a bit more about some of the incredible and exciting resources in the Nova collection. Take it away, Sean.
Okay. Thanks, Ralph. And thanks to all of you for spending an hour with us tonight. I'm just going to highlight just a few things, resources of the hundreds of resources in the collection, just to give you a taste of what's out there and hopefully inspire you to explore some more. Next slide, please. Everything that we're going to talk about, you've heard Ralph say PBS LM, this is PBS LearningMedia. This is the platform that this collection is on. Again, all the resources currently and in the premium collection will be free and freely available to everybody. Next slide, please. The resources that you're going to find on here are supplementary in nature. So what that means is that you're for the most part, you're not going to find full units, but instead individual resources that you can use to enhance your instruction. So all these resources are designed to be flexible and adaptable to fit into any number of places in the curriculum. Next, please. And even though they're supplementary, we do provide support materials for that. So there are hints for how you might be able to integrate them into your classroom, supports for students. So there's discussion questions. A lot of the resources have student readings, and all of the resources since 2020 have handouts with them. So they're just ready to go and assignable. And you can assign through our system, PBS LearningMedia. You can click on that green button there, and it's assigned with Google Classroom. And just check out our help information page, and you can, if you have Canvas, Seesaw, Schoology, or any number of other systems that you use, and you should be able to work with those. Next slide, please. So one thing that Nova resources are really great for is helping to make STEM content meaningful to students. You know, try to relate it to their lives, to society, why they should care about all of this content. This could be investigating and thinking about the ethical considerations of genetic testing for the breast cancer gene by those genetic testing places like 23andMe. It can be more like gerrymandering, using geometry to have some kind of objective measure to determine whether districts are gerrymandered or not. What about junk food and how we can't stop eating chips? Like, why is that? There's a biological reason behind that. And so these are all things that you can, are part of the science or math curriculum, but have links to, are ways to help you link this content to students' daily lives and things that they're interested in. Next slide, please. Nova's also tells the stories of not just how we currently are developing understanding of our world, but historically how this happened as well. So you can introduce things like, where did our number system come from? What about algebra? What's the history of that, and why? How did that all come about? There are also stories like connections between astronomy and Islam, and the reason that connection is so deep is because it's so important for the practice of their religion to know exactly what time it is. So these are the kinds of little supplement things you can supplement your instruction with to give a little historical perspective as well, and cultural perspective to your content. Next slide, please. And then finally, Nova is great at just representing diversity, racial, ethnicity, and different subcultures in their STEM experts. So when you're using their excerpts from their films, can really let students kind of see themselves as STEM experts, which is always important. So now we're just going to dig in and talk about, highlight a few specific resources. Next, please. Well, your brain, since this is what you've all tuned in for to hear Heather Boleyn. She was the host of this series, and it is about just how your brain and how it translates the world, how much of it we see, how much is conscious, how much is unconscious, and just all of those questions. And we also dig into what color is the dress that was a big phenomenon a couple of years ago, and explain why some people see one color and some people see another color. Next slide, please. Another series that was a few years ago, Beyond the Elements. And this kind of dug into chemistry's role in the history of civilization, basically, which sounds really deep, but chemistry is really important. Both natural, the photosynthesis is pretty important set of reactions, but also things like fire, being able to synthesize ammonia to create fertilizer for agriculture, now cement, plastics, all these things have helped make our lives better. But we also, some of them have some unintended consequences. And so these resources delve into both the structure, properties, and function of various materials, as well as the societal benefits and consequences of using them. In the collection, there's also an interactive where students can explore some of these really important chemical reactions and kind of get the conservation of matter illustrated for them. Next slide, please. Polar Extremes is a really popular series where for investigating the history of Earth, Kirk Johnson goes out and he collects evidence about the history or the climate history of the planet. And he's so good. He runs through and looks not just at the evidence, but discusses why the evidence supports these claims of and these stories of our past. And so he's really good at modeling that claim evidence and that reasoning part that is so difficult for students. And so these resources can be also a way of seeing that in action with scientists, but also having students kind of evaluate and be exposed to some evidence that they can't necessarily collect themselves. This collection also has the Polar Lab, which is an immersive, really rich learning experience. There's like 360 images in the Arctic, so kids, it's like being there. And they go off on various quests and look at evidence throughout this lab. And this is just one of several labs that NOVA has about various topics. So there's one in evolution, RNA, exoplanets. So be sure to check those out in the collections as well. Next slide, please. Decoding the Weather Machine was from a few years ago, but this collection has a really, really nice set of resources that lay out the evidence of changing levels of greenhouse gases and temperature. In particular, there's just really explicit evidence for showing that human activity is responsible for the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere now. So I was really excited when I saw that one. Next slide, please. So the NOVA collection also has a lot of resources of exploring the universe. Beautiful cinematic type filming where students can really dig in, see some real data and some real phenomena, and see how scientists are working to figure out the really deep questions of how we came about, how the Earth came about, the universe, and are we alone? As well as the tools they use. So the role of engineering in the scientific endeavor. Here's another example of a lab where one of the NOVA labs where it's kind of a game-like experience where students will try to detect exoplanets and learn how to do that. And then they will go off and then for certain types of beings, they're going to spectroscopically examine the atmospheres to see whether these planets they find are suitable for various life forms. So lots of science in there, a really rich experience. Okay, so next slide, please. Another thing that Nova does is, so this is, we have a couple collections that are related to some opioid use, and then also the cannabis question. And these are really sensitive topics that can be, that might be difficult to bring into the classroom. So, we worked with experts on these collections to create a guide that teachers can use so that you can know the type of language to use to help facilitate discussions and just be prepared and feel prepared to bring these things into the classroom. And they don't always have to be, they're not all about addiction or something like that, but the biological implications, how these things work in the brain. So these are also things that are related to the standards, but like, what is this doing to you? There's a resource on the effect of cannabis on the adolescent brain. In addiction, we have a story told about, from the youth's perspective, about how vaping affected this boy's life. And so, so this is another thing that Nova offers, just brings all these things that are all these issues that are related and important to society, and prepares them for the classroom. So next slide, please. I think I could talk forever, but I know we want to get to Dr. Heather Palin, but is she here yet?
So we're waiting for her to join in just a minute or so, but we would love to just take some questions in the meantime from folks. So if you do have any questions, I just wanted to address a couple of things that I saw in the chat. I think we had a question about signing up for the engineering kits. And so I do want to, again, explain that the kits will soon be available in late October, early November. We will be sharing the link for folks to register on our Nova Education listserv and on the GBH Education listserv. So if you found out about this from one of those listservs, then you will find out about that one that is ready. Unfortunately, we do not have that link available right now, but in a few weeks we'll have more information about how you can register to get one of those kits. And again, we do want to again remind you all that we will be prioritizing teachers who teach engineering and physics for these resources because of the nature of the content that's covered in them. And so just wanted to, provide some details about that, that will be available again later on in the fall. And then I see another question. Are these kits available to teachers outside of the US? So unfortunately, we will only be able to send them within the United States. So unfortunately, we don't have the capabilities to send them outside, just due to the nature of the project and the funding for the project. So it is exclusive to educators in the US. So yes, I just want to clarify that. Any additional questions about anything that Sean or I shared about the LM resources?
I've also seen a couple questions about links to Canada. Sometimes because of rights issues, because of the films, we only can, we can only have resources or use excerpts in the US. Sometimes it's only in North America. So we can't always do it worldwide. So we're sorry if some of these links don't work for you, for those of you out of the country.
Absolutely. And then I see another question about nonprofit organizations. Would nonprofit organizations that teach students physics and engineering be able to apply for the kits? Yes. So if you are a member of a nonprofit organization that works in the engineering or the physics space with young people, with youth, you are eligible to apply to receive one of those kits. So yeah, it includes both in school and out of school or schools and community organizations that are working in that space can receive one of those kits. Great question. Thank you. And I do want to remind everyone that all the links mentioned by the presenters will be included in a follow-up resource document. So if you, again, signed up for this webinar through Zoom, in addition, we'll be able to, I think we'll be able to update the description on the videos as well that are on YouTube and Facebook. You will be able to receive those resources in that document. The kits, question about the kits are given away. So these are free kits. You'll be able to keep them, keep all the resources, so you do not have to worry about sending them back or anything. They'll have, again, all the materials for you to execute those activities. They'll be available for you to do. So do not worry about the availability of, or whether or not you have to send those kits back. But yeah, very exciting. So we do have Dr. Heather Berlin with us today.
I don't hear them.
Dr. Berlin, are you with us?
I don't hear you.
Oh, okay. You cannot hear us. Okay, so you should. It thinks like your audio.
Wait, I hear you now. Okay.
Okay.
Am I? I'm not live now, am I? Or am I?
Oh, yes, you are live. Thank you so much
I'm
for joining
live.
us, Dr. Berlin.
Okay. Hello. How are you?
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us and to talk about your incredible research. So before we get started, I am going to give a quick intro to Dr. Heather Berlin and the work that she does. So Dr. Heather Berlin is a neuroscientist, clinical psychologist, and associate clinical professor of psychiatry and neuroscience at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York. She explores the neural basis of impulsive and compulsive psychiatric and neurological disorders with the aim of developing novel treatments. She's also interested in the brain basis of consciousness, dynamic unconscious processes, and creativity. Dr. Berlin is a passionate science communicator and hosts the Nova series, Your Brain, which Sean mentioned earlier. If you have not checked out that series, we highly recommend it. It is an incredible series, all about how consciousness impacts who we are, how creativity rests in the brain, how the world and the illusions sort of work, and how our perception shapes our reality with our brain. And so she's previously hosted series on PBS and Discovery Channel and makes regular appearances on Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson. She's also appeared on the BBC, the History Channel, Netflix, and National Geographic, among others. And so excited to have Dr. Berlin with us. She will be launching into a presentation all about the adolescent brain. And so for many of you educators out there wondering sort of, how do I reach my students? What is going on in their heads? Why are they on their phones all the time? How do we sort of manage sort of screen time and the effect of the pandemic? She has a really great presentation that will answer a lot of these questions and also hopefully provide you with some tips to better reach and engage your students based off of the latest neuroscience research. And so I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Berlin. You should be able to share your screen so you can hop into your presentation, and we will be taking questions at the end of our presentation. So if you do have questions during a presentation, please just drop them in the chat, either here in Zoom, on Facebook, or on YouTube, and we will get to them at the end of her presentation. So I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Berlin. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Okay, now I'm going to do the technical part of trying to share my screen and my slides only. So hold on one second. And thank you for that great introduction. Okay, share. And now I think I have to share part of the screen. What do you guys see now?
So we're seeing your whole entire slide deck. I think if you press play, you should be able to launch to see what you see.
Hold on. This is where it gets technical. Share. And I think I have to share part of my screen. Hold on. Or maybe you can share my slides from
Okay.
where you are, and then I can, yeah, I'll stop my screen share. I think that'll probably be the easiest thing to do.
Okay, no problem.
All right,
All right, and just give me an audio cue whenever you need me to advance.
perfect. Okay, and I'll be able to see what you're going to share it now so I can see.
All right. All right, here we are. All good?
Okay, yes, so you can advance to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so the brain, I think, is the most fascinating object in the known universe because it's the only object in the universe by which we can understand everything we experience in the world. But it is a quite complex piece of matter, and you can go to the next slide. And the next, actually. Much of what's happening in the brain is happening outside of awareness. And you can think of it like a sort of information processing machine where, first of all, it's a myth that what's happening in the brain is happening, most of it is happening unconsciously, and it's affecting our behavior and the decisions that we make. So go to the next slide. Thanks. I want to just take you through a little bit of the neuroanatomy so that I can get into the adolescent brain. But in a fully formed adult brain, you basically have these two systems. You have these subcortical areas, evolutionarily older. You can think of it like the Keith Richards of your brain, the limbic system, which is sensitive to immediate pleasure or avoidance of pain. It's associated with wanting to take risks, pleasure seeking, impulsivity. Then you have the more recently evolved prefrontal cortex, which is involved in thinking about the future consequences of your actions and making decisions and self-control. And I put this as the Joe Biden of your brain. But when these two systems are in balance, we make pretty adaptive decisions, right? We're weighing the immediate pleasure versus the long-term outcome. However, when there's either a lesion to the prefrontal cortex or the brake system is sort of broken or there's underactivation of the prefrontal cortex, it makes it much harder for you to control your impulses. Or if there's overactivation of the limbic system, so the accelerator is turned on too high, it overrides the brake system, and we can make these maladaptive decisions. Next slide. And you can press it again, yeah. So, the classic case of Phineas Gage, where he had this metal tamping iron go through his prefrontal cortex, was really interesting, is that his personality, his intelligence, his ability to speak all remained intact, but what changed was his personality and his ability to control his impulses. And studies even show that when you have people watching videos, if they're just watching a neutral scene versus an aggressive scene or a scene that's showing violence, they will have decreased activation in their prefrontal cortex simply watching other people behave aggressively. Next slide. So we all are sort of on this spectrum between taking risks and risk aversion. And if your prefrontal cortex is turned down too low, you can press the slide so you can, there you go. You'll have these impulse control disorders, things like pathological gambling, antisocial personality disorder. But if it's turned up too high, there's overactivation of the prefrontal cortex. You become overly risk averse and you can develop psychiatric illnesses like obsessive compulsive disorder, anorexia, things that are over controlling. So the whole idea is to sort of have a good balance. If you're somebody who tends to be under controlled, you want to work towards gaining more control. Or if you're somebody who tends to be over controlled, you want to turn down the prefrontal cortex to get that balance. Next slide. So I'm going to move it into now the developing brain. And this is a classic study. It's a bit controversial and there's been some pushback against it. But the classic marshmallow test where you can have, give a child one marshmallow now, you walk out of the room, you say, you can wait here, don't eat the marshmallow, and you can have two when I come back. Now, some kids are able to sit there perfectly still and not eat the marshmallow. Others can't resist. And they found that when they followed these kids up over time, this perfectly well correlated with their future success in life. So they looked at things like body mass index, their marital status, job attainment. But really, this is a measure of prefrontal cortex function. It's how much are you able to control your immediate desire for pleasure for some greater good. And you can see how this scales up. Think about through school, through college. Are you going to go out to the party tonight? Or are you going to not go out and study instead? And how that will eventually scale up to getting a good job. So there are individual differences in our capability to have this self-control. But next slide. Next slide. And when you look at the developing brain, what you can see here is that it's not fully developed until about the age of 20 to 25. So when you're dealing with the adolescent brain, you're dealing with an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. So adolescence is this very critical period of brain development. And I think that teachers can play a key role in shaping students at both their academic, social, and emotional growth. And I'm going to give you these 5 insights into things that are happening in students' brains that can help give you strategies to improve your teaching based on what's happening in terms of their brain development. So we're starting with the prefrontal cortex, which is really important for decision-making, impulse control, and reasoning. And one of the key insights is that, again, it's the last part of the brain to fully mature. It's not fully developed until the 20s. And middle and high school students can struggle with things like planning, organization, controlling their impulses. So I think based on this, a really important tip for teachers would be to help set clear guidelines, have structured tasks because their executive function isn't fully online yet, and practice in decision-making to help them build up their executive function skills. Next slide. They also have heightened sensitivity to reward and emotions. So their limbic system, this subcortical emotional part of the brain, is overactive. It's more active in adolescence than it is in adulthood. So students are more motivated by rewards, by their peer approval, and by immediate gratification. And then teens might engage in these risk-taking behaviors. They're more sensitive to social status. They respond strongly to praise and to criticism. So for a teacher, I'd suggest, based on this, to use positive reinforcement, use praise, look for opportunities for social learning, and help students reflect on their emotions before reacting. Next slide. Another important thing to know about the brain during adolescence is that it's a time of heightened neuroplasticity. So that means that the brain is highly adaptable and can learn new skills and habits quickly. So it's really an opportunity. And so that the skills and the habits that they learn in this stage can have really positive long-term impacts. They can pick up both good and bad habits. And so it's important that teachers encourage curiosity, creativity, engage students with challenging tasks and active learning, and give them frequent feedback. And again, this critical period of development can go really good or it can go really bad. And I think a good teacher or mentor can make all the difference in a student's life. Next slide. So my 4th point is that sleep is very important for brain development, and adolescents need more sleep than adults. Typically, they need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And during sleep, we know that the brain consolidates memories, it clears waste. And due to these biological shifts during adolescence, teens tend to stay up late and struggle with early mornings. And sleep deprivation can affect attention, memory, mood, decision-making, and lead to poor academic performance. So for a teacher, you should be aware of the student's need to sleep and maybe encourage healthy sleeping habits, and perhaps consider how homework and early school start times can impact sleep. Next slide. So this one study showed it was when they gave students, or they gave people, a problem to solve, and there was a really creative solution to solve it, a novel solution. And they had one set of people sleep for 8 hours and the others were not able to sleep. And what they found is that the people who slept, about 60% of them could come up with the solution to this problem. And those who didn't sleep, only about 23% could come up with this creative solution. So we know that when we sleep, our brains replay, process, learn, and extract meaning. They consolidate information. It consolidates memories. And even just taking a short nap during the day can help improve performance. So I just cite this study to really express how important sleep is in terms of brain development, creativity, and academic performance. Next slide. And finally, peer influence and social dynamics play a huge role. Adolescents are exquisitely sensitive to their peers. They have heightened activity in the social brain network. There's a certain neural network in the brain that's active in relation to social interactions. And peer relationships can really impact academic engagement and performance in school. So teens are more likely to conform to peer norms and pressures. So for a teacher, I think it would be really helpful to create a positive, supportive classroom culture that fosters collaboration, and also address things like bullying and encourage inclusiveness in peer interactions. Next slide. So to sum up, how to apply these insights in the classroom. I think first, structure and routine is very important. Adolescents benefit from clear expectations and structure due to their developing prefrontal cortex. Positive reinforcement, so you can tap into their sensitivity to rewards and emotions by celebrating their achievements, giving them a lot of positive praise. Active learning, so leveraging this time period when there's very clear brain plasticity. So create these hands-on creative activities that can challenge students to think critically. And sleep awareness, be mindful of the cognitive effects of sleep deprivation and consider maybe reducing late night academic stress or homework, and foster peer learning. So use group projects and collaboration as a way to channel the influence that the peer dynamics have on them in a positive way. Next slide. So the last two issues that I just wanted to mention is the impact of media or social media and technology on an adolescent's developing brain. We know that it affects attention and focus. So social media and this fast-paced content can shorten attention spans. So adolescents might struggle with sustaining focus due to the constant distractions. It affects emotional development. So it increases dopamine from social media, getting these constant rewards. And it can ultimately lead to anxiety, depression, low self-esteem due to social comparison, right? Everybody looks like they're having a great time online. It makes you question your own life. It can impact your social skills and the development of empathy when you're not having real life interactions. The way our brain evolved was to interact in real life. And so I think a lot of kids are lacking in social skills and empathy because they're spending all this time online. And sleep deprivation, again, excessive screen time, especially before bed, can disrupt sleep patterns. And again, sleep, as I said, is really crucial for memory and for emotional regulation. Next slide. And also, I think it's worth mentioning the impact that COVID and the pandemic has had on the adolescent developing brain. The social isolation, limited face-to-face interaction can affect the development of social skills and emotional regulation, and also really affect prefrontal cortex development. Increased stress. Now, when you increase cortisol levels, and we know this from people also who experience trauma at an early age, it affects hippocampal development. The hippocampus is is the area of the brain involved in memory. And it affects amygdala responsivity, which is part of the brain involved in emotion. So again, we've seen with the pandemic a surge in mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And also technology use. This actually accelerated they were stuck at home, everything went online. And so it accelerated screen dependency for both school and their social lives, which I think could compound the potential negative effects on brain development. Next slide. So in terms of neuroscience supported instructional practices for adolescents, I'd say, and these are suggestions, maybe having later school start times, and that would align with adolescents' circadian rhythms and improve their focus and mental health. Have active learning versus rote memorization. So project-based and collaborative learning, which again engages the prefrontal cortex and encourages critical thinking. Restorative discipline. So focus on empathy and problem solving rather than punitive measures, which is more effective given the adolescents developing emotional regulation. And integrate social emotional learning. So again, this will support emotional regulation, resilience, relationship skills, and will lead to healthy brain development. So in sum, the adolescent brain, it's still developing. Key areas like the prefrontal cortex, the reward system, and social networks are influencing their behavior. And I think teachers can shape students' learning and decision-making and emotional health by understanding and responding to these developmental changes. And they can use this, you can use this understanding to create a more supportive and engaging learning environment that aligns with the students' developing needs. And we're short on time, so you can switch to the final slide. I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to open it up to questions.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Berlin. That was incredible. Just really incredible and powerful insights, I think, for all the educators out there. Yeah, I think those tips on how we can sort of really rethink our approach and our instructional practices as well, I think are really, really key to having an important impact on our students, especially given the challenges that many educators face right now with we've never had a situation where students have had sort of, devices in their pockets that immediately distract them. I mean, I can't, when I was teaching, students had cell phones, but not, I think, to the extent they have right now. And so I really do, I really do think about sort of that impact and how challenging it can be to sort of manage all these sort of competing influences on students' attention now more than ever before. And so, yeah, we have some really great questions for some folks in the audience, and so we're going to start taking a few. But one question that we have is how much individual variation is there in adolescent brain development, and how can we manage this in school and in society at large?
That's a big question. Okay, so there is significant individual variation in adolescents' brain development. It's influenced by genetics, environment, social interactions, and our past experiences. And these key processes like synaptic pruning. So, we're actually born with many more connections than what we need. And as we go through life and have experiences, it's a sort of pruning process. Where unused connections are eliminated, and then we myelinate or make faster connections in other areas. And so this occurs at different rates for adolescents. People's brains are developing at different rates. In terms of management in schools, I think it would be helpful to offer like differentiated instruction in schools to meet the different, like the diverse cognitive need and emotional needs of students as they have varying paces of brain development, let's say. I think socially, adolescents can also benefit from environments that are flexible and supportive and less rigid to provide, again, these varied learning environments and promote emotional regulation strategies. And use teaching social emotional skills can help adolescents navigate the different stages of development that they're in.
Great, thank you so much. And this is a really, I think, interesting question about in terms of sort of opportunities to communicate this to students. This question asks, what would you want middle schoolers to understand about their own brain development? So sort of what do you think is important, or what can we share with students to help them better understand how to manage these changes that they're going through?
I find, I work also as a clinician, and I work with young kids and middle school kids. And what I find is that the more they understand about their own brain, it actually helps give them the tools. Like they can put a name to what they're feeling. So when they're having, let's say they're triggered by an emotion, they can identify that and say, oh, I'm feeling triggered right now. Like, and know that maybe I don't have the same capacity to regulate or control that emotion as an adult would have. And I need to separate myself from this situation. But the more they know about how their brain works, I think it actually helps them have the tools to help self-regulate in a way, because like, oh, it's not just like I'm a flawed person or I just don't have any self-control. They're understanding it from a mechanistic way, which actually helps them psychologically. And I think it's also important for the adults to realize that too. Like when your kid's having a tantrum, it's not as easy for them to calm themselves down as it is for you to calm yourself down when you're upset, and to have some empathy and understanding based on from a biological basis why that is more difficult for a child than it is for an adult. Or when when teenagers act and take risks. I mean, I took crazy risks as a teen that I never would contemplate taking now, but realizing that my brain was in a different state of development. It wasn't that I was like a flawed human being. And so the more children know about that, I think it helps them be less hard on themselves for not being as like the ideal student, let's say.
Great. So we do have a question about ADHD. So what strategies can we use with students with ADHD in the classroom? Putting on your clinician hat, I guess, for this question.
Yeah. It depends, right? And so in ADHD is a biological, so you're having decreased activation in the prefrontal cortex. So you're taking a prefrontal cortex that's already underdeveloped, and then you're also decreasing the activation in parts of that brain. So it becomes even more difficult. It's not that they can't pay attention at all. It's about difficulty paying attention to things that they're not inherently interested in. There's also a lack of dopamine, right? And so depending on how severe the ADHD is, sometimes they do need medication to help regulate, to rebalance that. It's an imbalance in the brain. And, I think people, if you had something wrong, let's say you had, you need to take an antibiotic, you'd be like, that's fine. I need to rebalance, my system. But I think people look at brain dysfunction in a different way, but sometimes you really just need something to help with an imbalance in neurochemistry. So sometimes medication can help, but other times with kids, depending on how flexible, again, the classroom structure is, you can create, for certain kids, you can take breaks in between, right? They can't maybe sustain the attention for long periods of time. So with younger kids, I'll be like, okay, you can work for 15 minutes and you get to walk around, outside in the hallway for 5 minutes, you come back and work some more. So developing sort of strategies to help, if that's possible. It's not always possible, depending on, to have that level of individualized, but giving them a task to even do at their desk. Like maybe a kid likes to draw, so you say, okay, you can work on this for 10 minutes, then you get to draw at your desk for 5 minutes, and then you can go back to working. But little breaks can help them, because sometimes they can't sustain attention for a task that we call a non-preferred task, something that's not innately interesting for them. So it really depends on how severe the ADHD is and how much resources you have to be able to, help the kid in the classroom.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Berlin. And so we have a question about, you mentioned sort of, restorative sort of consequences to dealing with behavior and managing behavior. This question comes from a teacher who asks, if a student deals with impulsivity, perhaps something subconscious, do you have advice for sort of more restorative and logical consequences as opposed to more punitive measures?
Yeah, it's it's just the general sort of reinforcement model of, if you want someone to behave, we call it shaping, sort of shaping a behavior. So you can either do it by punishing them when they're doing something wrong, or rewarding them for little steps towards the right thing, right? So it's like you're kind of like gently pushing them in the right direction. So they may not behave exactly the way you would prefer them to behave, but instead of punishing them for that, reward them for the one step in a right direction that they might have taken. Because then you're starting to encourage them to move toward that direction, rather than, because the punishment, especially in teens, doesn't seem to be as impactful as a more like rewarding schedule, like to reinforce the behavior. But you have to really say, okay, I didn't like the way you behaved, let's say, at recess today, but I did like it when you helped so and so like tie their shoe, whatever it may be. Like, find the positive thing, and just keep reinforcing the little positive steps in the right direction, rather than always looking at like where you can be punitive. And that just helps promote better behaviors, better than the punishment.
Absolutely. As a parent of a 2-year-old, I'm trying to figure out how to provide more restorative measures to things like throwing the plate of food on the ground and some of the other behaviors that I'm dealing with right now.
And the other thing that really works, depending on the age, but you can sort of change it up to make it age appropriate, but it's like really these like reward star chart type of things, like where it's like you tell them, okay, look, if you read, when you get up to 5 books read, then you get a reward, or whatever the behavior is you're trying to shape or mold. Having a reward system or a chart, it really does motivate kids. More so than the punishment, like, oh, you're in trouble because you didn't read the required reading this week. But like, give them a goal to work toward, and it also gives them autonomy and internal motivation. You want to motivate them internally. It has to be a reward that they want. Ask them, what would you want as a reward? And then create that system for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Berlin. And we have time for about 2 more questions. before we wrap up. And thank you all again for joining us. Thank you for the great questions. And thank you again, Dr. Berlin, for the incredible presentation. But we have a question about cannabis, actually. And can you share any insights about how the legalization of cannabis in states or even secondhand cannabis intake has affected or is affecting students' brains? Are there any trends that people have been seeing in response to sort of the availability of cannabis in many states across the country?
I think it's still early days, and I think there's not enough out there to really see what the impact is going to be ultimately. A colleague of mine at Mount Sinai, Yasmin Hurd, does a lot of really good research on the effects of cannabis on the brain and on the developing brain. And based on her research, like it's a myth that it doesn't have a negative impact. It does, and the strains that are out now are very potent and much stronger than what was even around, when I was younger, right? Not that I would know firsthand, but knowing what was out there, it's much stronger now and more potent, and it does really have a negative impact on the brain. And actually, in high doses, can lead to psychosis. There are kids that have had psychotic episodes. It can lead to anxiety. But it can actually it can negatively impact the developing brain. It can have an effect on memory. And again, when you're talking about this neuroplastic time, this very crucial period of development, it's like, I want to say to people, like, look, it's fine. If you want to smoke weed, great. Like, why don't you just wait till your brain is fully formed and then smoke, right? Because you're really interjecting in such a critical period that can have these long-term effects. And we don't really know fully what those long-term effects are yet, especially with these more potent strains and the vaping now too, like it's coming in this chemical version, not the pure, marijuana that grows on plants. It's a whole different ball game now. And so I think the short answer is that we don't fully know the impact of the legalization, but I am concerned about the potency and that it's so available, especially for children who are making poor decisions already because they don't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex. And now this is adding to the problem.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Dr. Yasmin Hurd, who actually appears in the Cannabis Question film. So for anybody who's interested in learning more about that topic, we do have, I think Sean mentioned it earlier, but the Cannabis Question collection, which has some really great resources that specifically talk about the impact of cannabis on the teenage brain. So highly recommend that folks check that out. I think Sean just posted a link to that in the chat, so please check out that collection. And then one more question this is about anxiety in teenagers. So any strategies for helping teenagers to deal or to manage their anxiety over their workload? I know I hear all the time about, teens who are just dealing with immense workloads, all the testing, all the preparation for college. So any strategies you have for how we can help teach students better manage the anxiety over the amount of responsibility and workloads that they have?
Yeah, it's really, they're under an incredible amount of pressure. And this is really something that I work with a lot with patients in my practice, is how to help them manage this anxiety. Now, one thing I think to help them is the perfectionism. So they put a lot of pressure on themselves. It's not, a lot of the times it's not coming from the parent. I mean, sometimes it is coming from the parents, but a lot of the times it's their own pressure to be perfect. And when I work with even younger kids, what I'll do is I'll actually have them make mistakes on purpose and sit with that and to be able to tolerate that uncomfortableness. So I'll say, okay, look, we're going to do something wrong on a homework and hand it in anyway, and sit with that until the feeling subsides. It's about being able to tolerate being uncomfortable with not being perfect, with not getting an A. And if you can master that, that clears up a lot of the anxiety, because a lot of the anxiety is around this, what if I'm not perfect? What if I don't get into the best school? And it's like, you know what? It's okay. You can sit with that feeling long enough and it passes, and you're like, I will be okay if I don't get straight A's. I'm still gonna, and I really do focus on what are the really important qualities about you as a person. What do you value? What do people value about you? Do they really value that you get straight A's, or do they value that you're a good friend, or that you're funny, or, what are these things? And those are the important things that I try to get them to focus on, rather than their whole self-worth is tied up in how successful they are academically. And I work with parents too to help reinforce that message, that it's okay if you don't get into like a top Ivy League school. You're still going to be successful. You're still going to be loved. You're still going to be a great person, and that your identity is not tied up in that. But it starts young. I mean, if you have young kids, I would say, don't, like, if they let them color outside the lines. Don't, as a parent, you will kind of want to go in and fix things, and you like, oh, I want their project to be perfect, I'm going to help them. Don't let them make mistakes. That's the best thing you can do for them, and encourage them to make mistakes and sit with the feeling and allow them to be uncomfortable. You know, it's okay to be, because you build up the resilience that way, and it inoculates you from the inevitable, you know, things that are going to come at you at life anyway, that they're going to have to figure out how to tolerate. But also, wait, one more thing: meditation, deep breathing, go for walks, you know, get good sleep, all those other things that also help with the anxiety. Eat healthy, exercise.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I think these are, applicable both for teachers, for parents, I mean, for anybody who really works with youth. I think these are really, really great guidelines and tips to really ensure that we're supporting students and really maximizing, their best selves as well. What you just said actually reminds me of, I remember this book I read a while ago called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it was talking about, the stressful environments that we live in now, and how, we have stress responses that are supposed to be used for actually dangerous things that we are using for things like a bad email that we got or a test that we have coming up. And it's like, these are not life-threatening things, but we're sort of stimulating a response reaction that is supposed to be used for actually life-threatening things, or things that actually mean danger to our well-being. And so how important it is for us to, to build that resiliency, as you said, very early on in our young people. So thank you for sharing that.
I'll say one last thing on that. It's just it's this mismatch theory of all psychiatric illnesses are a mismatch between what was evolutionarily adaptive for us in the past being matched up to, current modern society, where it doesn't make sense to have those reactions, and then it can lead to a lot of these psychological issues.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Berlin. Thank you, everyone who joined us. I know we ran a little bit over in time, but it seems like a lot of folks were sticking around and had some really great questions. I know, Sean, I don't know if we still wanted to talk about the survey, but I can just transition to pulling that up really quickly. And let me just grab that. All right. But again, these resources can be found on PBS Learning Media. Everything that we shared today, the links should be available there. In addition, we have quite a few other collections as well. Everything from our Nova Wonders collections, which is highlighting young scientists exploring some of the latest research in their fields, to math. We also have some other great collections talking on everything from chemical reactions to extreme weather events and climate change to misinformation. Definitely a topic that's very important right now, especially in the election season, where there's so much sort of misinformation happening and being spread online. And then also bringing the University of America's Classroom, which really highlights Earth and space science with a great collection curated and supported by NASA. And so we encourage you to check those resources out. We also encourage you to help us to do better. And so if you can click on this link will also be shared in the chat. But this is a link to a survey. If you complete the survey, you will be entered in to win a Nova prize pack. We were giving away 5 Nova 50th anniversary prize packs for teachers. So please complete the survey and you will be entered into a raffle to receive one of these sets of some really great Nova swag. And that survey closes October 3rd. So please make sure to get in your response sooner than later. And then you can also download a certificate of attendance. I know we got a couple of questions for folks asking about getting a certificate to use for professional development. And so if you complete that survey, that would allow us to download and prepare that certificate of attendance for this webinar. I know Dr. Berlin covered some really great and important tips and strategies that apply to your pedagogy and to your instructional practice as well. And so if you want to receive some credit for that, please complete the survey to get access to that. But yeah, I think that is it. Sean, Denise, I don't know if we have anything else that we need to share with folks. The link should be, again, available in the chat. But thank you all again for joining us. This has been an incredible opportunity and to hear from Dr. Berlin and to also hear about all the incredible resources. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, Sean. I also want to give a big shout out to our tech team in the background, Nikki and Tara, who've been helping to get this all up and running and to share these resources with you all. Thank you to Sean as well for sharing and providing an overview of those resources. Yeah, we will be back soon with another webinar, hopefully sometime later in the fall or in early winter. But thank you so much again for joining us. Hope everybody has a great evening. And again, this is also live streaming to YouTube and to Facebook as well. So if you want to immediately hop in and rewatch Heather's talk or access some of those resources, you can go straight to the GBH Education YouTube and Facebook channels. You can check out an archive of this webinar right now. Dr. Berlin, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, it's just great. Thank you. Check out the Your Brain resources. I'm sure you went over them previously, but it's been great to take part in this. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, that link was shared in the chat as well, but the Your Brain series 2-hour special, you could see Heather Berlin exploring all these topics that she covered and even more, everything from the unconscious to the subconscious to creativity, to sort of how our senses and how our senses are manipulated by illusions. I mean, it's a really, really incredible series, really engaging as well. So big thank you again to Dr. Berlin. Thank you for taking time out of your really busy, super busy schedule to join us tonight. And we really appreciate all your contributions to this project and your enthusiasm for sharing and communicating science to everyone, and especially to educators as well. It really is always a pleasure to work with you and a pleasure to hear from you and to hear about your research as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you for joining us.